All right, we're ready.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Katie. My name is Andrea Nell. I'm a clinical supervisor. I work mainly in the Central San Diego Learning Center in Kearney Mesa, San Diego. And I have a few clients as well in the home setting. So I'm working both at the center and in home sessions. And I'm presenting today with.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Anstead. I'm also located in San Diego. I'm a clinical supervisor. I have a couple of the kiddos that I work with getting services learning center in Kearney Mesa, but a lot of my clients are also in home. In addition to being a supervisor, I'm also the social group specialist for the San Diego region. So I help to develop and implement social group skills classes basically all throughout the region. So we have one up in Carlsbad, we have one in Kearney Mesa, we also have one in National City. We also have a Hangouts group for older learners on Fridays in the Kearney Mesa location that I'll cover a little bit later.
Awesome. And so today we're going to be talking to you guys about ABA for school age children. But first, we just have some MeBe updates. So we'll get into all, or not updates, just information about what MeBe is. So we'll get into that first.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. So this is my slide. If you don't work with MeBe yet, or if you're not familiar with MeBe, MeBe is about being me. That's the name, MeBe. We work really hard to integrate evidence and research-based strategies with really intense personal attention to provide ABA therapy that is engaging for your child, flexible in nature, and customized to their needs. So it develops over time.
And MeBe has locations all over the country. We have locations throughout California, in San Diego. There's 3 different locations that Chelsea already talked about here in San Diego. We have location in Orange County. That's just serving home clients right now. And also in Los Angeles, those are just for home ABA clients. Coming soon, though, hopefully we'll be getting learning centers in Orange County and Los Angeles as well. And then we have a learning center in the Bay Area, and we serve home clients there as well. And then we have a center that just opened in Round Rock, Austin area, Texas. And then we also we serve clients in the home in Houston and Dallas areas in Texas. We have a learning center in Seattle and Phoenix, Arizona. And then we also work in Denver, Colorado, and Northern Virginia area. And so all the locations that don't yet have learning centers, the plan is to eventually get learning centers up and running in all of our locations soon. So stay tuned for when new learning centers might be opening in your area.
Okay, and as we already mentioned at the very beginning, we are found on Instagram, on Facebook with the MeBe family name. We're also on YouTube and LinkedIn. You can Google MeBe and you'll find us everywhere.
And then at MeBe, we provide ABA, which is applied behavior analysis, occupational therapy, or more commonly heard as OT, and then speech and language therapy as well. And at MeBe, we collaborate with each other to make sure that there's the best possible outcomes for all of our clients and their families. So as an ABA supervisor, I work closely with the OTs and the speech therapists here at the center on the page about what we're teaching the children that we're working with, and just taking that collaborative approach.
Hey, Andrea, just going to jump in real quick. We're getting some feedback on the audio. I don't know if, just may give it a second to see if it'll clear up.
I was hearing.
Okay. Is it like too quiet or choppy?
I think it sounded like, I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like motion over the microphone or something.
Okay.
There's no feedback.
Okay. All right. I think we're good now. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Do we need to revisit any of those last things that I said? Or do you think we're good to keep going?
I think we're okay. We have the services that we provide on the screen: ABA, OT, and speech and language therapy.
Okay.
For any, I will just jump in. I see a couple people joining us. If anybody's just come in, you can ask questions through the chat, and I'll be checking the chat throughout the presentation, and we'll have time for questions at the end as well. And sorry, I will just add, we are recording so that if you have to jump off, you can refer back to the presentation later. Okay, now we're good to go.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about what ABA looks like for school-aged kids. So a couple of months ago, we did a different webinar on preparing kids for our early learners school readiness ABA program. And now today we're gonna talk about what it looks like if your child is already in school and then they are having ABA sessions after school. And we'll talk about the different types of skills that are taught. So skills that we teach during our ABA sessions are social, adaptive skills, pre-vocational, and pre-academic skills. And then the skills that we teach are based on your BCBA when you first start your services, and then every 6 months after that you're receiving services, your BCBA will do assessments with your client or with your child to determine what their deficits are and to see what types of skills and goals we can create to help them in all of the different skill areas that we work on during our ABA sessions. And then ABA sessions take place in the home setting, the center setting, or if your payer or insurance provider allows it, sometimes we have sessions out in the community. And we'll go into more detail about what each of those sessions might look like in the different settings. And then it's a possibility too to have a combination of those settings. So maybe some sessions are in the home settings, and then sometimes your child would come to MeBe's Learning Center for more social opportunities, for example.
Yeah, so speaking of social skills, within the MeBe Learning Center and in community outings in your home as much as possible, we like to facilitate plenty of interactions with other children. So we do that by really trying to target play dates with peers, as well as social interactions with your child's siblings. You're probably well aware that the way that your child interacts with their siblings is very different from how they interact with their neighbors or their classmates. So we really, really like to try to get both of those interactions in there because they're both equally important. If your payer allows, and if it's in your report, we are allowed to go to places like the park, sometimes the beach if we are safe, and we find a lot of social opportunities there as well. Some individual skills that we like to practice are things like sharing preferred toys, taking turns with preferred toys. Those can look a little bit different depending on your child's skill set. Tolerating winning and losing is a pretty big one. I work on that a lot, and it is a tricky skill, even for some adults I know, but we work on it with these older learners as well. We do have conversation practice. Sometimes that looks like drawing a card out of a jar that says, "Ooh, if you could meet any historical figure, who would that be?" And sometimes it's a lot more of just, "Hey, what did you play on your Xbox recently? Let's talk about that. I don't have an Xbox, I have a PlayStation. Do you have any questions for me?" We also try to work on perspective taking. This can look different depending on where your child's deficits are, but we try to teach emotions, we try to interpret feelings, determining how peers feel, and then really trying to hone in on what your child thinks that he or she ought to do when one of their peers is feeling a certain way. So these are all really important skills that we target in all the locations.
Awesome. And then another type of skill that we're teaching during our ABA sessions are adaptive skills. And so I should mention first that there are some insurance providers that don't allow some of these skills to be taught. And if that's the case, there's ways for you to still get help as a parent in these areas so that you can help your child with some of these skills. For example, if your insurance provider doesn't allow us to work on adoptive skills during ABA sessions, it can be something that your BCBA supervisor can work on you with during parent training meetings. And so your BCBA can give you tips about how to teach your child those self-care tasks, or how to teach your child to get dressed, and different tips for that. And then you can implement that outside of ABA sessions, and the supervisor can help you as things come up. You can ask for help during your parent training meetings. But there are some providers that do allow these skills to be practiced and taught during ABA sessions with the behavioral therapist. So some examples of skills that we work on if we're focusing on adaptive skills during sessions are self-care. So washing your hands, maybe even taking a shower, brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, getting dressed. So, putting on your clothes, taking off your clothes, putting on socks and shoes, tying your shoes, zipping up your jacket, buttoning your pants, those types of things. And there's a lot of different skills that come along with being able to do those skills that we can also work on leading up to the final goal of being able to get dressed. So there's that motor skill of, being able to grab the zipper. Maybe we have to work on a lot of different motor skills first before we can target your child being able to pull up their zipper, for example. Another type of adaptive skill that might be practiced during sessions would be household chores. So, and on the next slide, I have visuals for all of these too. So I won't go into too much detail about these until you have visuals to see with all these. Another type of skill that we might teach would be helping your child prepare their own snack or their own meal. Working on coping skills, which Katie mentioned earlier. Our webinar coming up in October is going to be all about coping skills and how ABA and OT collaborates to teach kids different coping skills. So we want to meet the kids where they're at. If something is frustrating for your kiddo, we want to see how we can help them cope with that and what can help them get through those barriers so that they're able to get through their daily living skills without frustrations. And then another one is self and match. So this one, I have an example here on this slide. It might look like a lot of words and happy faces and sad faces, but basically what it is for each activity, for example, that your child does during the day, there's different rules that they might have to follow and after each activity. So for example, homework time. Maybe there's 3 different homework tasks that your child has to do. So they have to do their math worksheet, their writing worksheet, and they have to read for 5 minutes. And during each activity, after the activity is complete, they would assess how they did during that activity. Did they use nice words? Did they keep their hands to themselves? Did they stay at the table? And then if they did those things, they would give themselves a happy face and their RBT, or maybe the parent would also rate how they felt that the child performed during those tasks. And then the point of this is to help your child kind of see how they're doing during each activity throughout their day, and then motivate them to continue to follow the rules, and they can get a reinforcer or a reward if they are following the rules throughout each activity, and if they're being honest with how they're doing. So if they say that they didn't follow rule number 1 and the RBT also agreed they didn't follow rule number 1, that's okay. They were honest about it. And then maybe they will try again next time to follow that rule instead. Chelsea, do you have anything to add with that self and match before I move on to the next visuals?
I mean, I think you covered it really well. I really love these. They do look really intimidating. They looked intimidating to me when I first saw one. RBTs are constantly intimidated by them, but they're a great way for your child to hold themselves accountable and also acknowledge that, if I tell the truth and I say, you know what, I did not stay at the table this time, I'm going to give myself a frowny face. They can still get a little bit of credit just for being honest. So there, it kind of releases the, I guess, how effective it would be to just say, oh, I followed every rule every single time. You do get more credit for telling the truth than you do if your RBT has to come back and say, dude, you didn't stay at the table, you got up immediately. That's going to be a frowny face. You're not going to get as many points this time. So this is a great system to kind of help kids learn how to tell the truth and reflect on whether or not they've been performing well.
Awesome. Cool. So this next slide is a bunch of different visuals that go along with the type of adaptive skills that we might be teaching. And visual aids like this are really helpful for the child to know which steps they need to do. So that top left one highlighted in yellow, I can dress myself. So it shows them getting undressed, then they, find their underwear, leggings, skirt, t-shirt, socks. So they know to get all these steps and put them on in, and maybe they don't have to follow that order, but that shows them exactly what they need to do to get dressed. The one below it, highlighted in an orangey, peachy color, is about the different chores that they need to do. And then these could be broken down even further. So for example, the bottom left one is cleaning dishes. So maybe first you put the dirty dishes in the sink, then you fill it with soapy water, get the sponge, scrub the plate, rinse the plate, dry the plate, put the plate in the cabinet. So you can kind of modify these visuals based on how much support your child needs to get through each of these chore tasks that they have to do. The one highlighted in green is for taking a shower, and this can be laminated and posted right in the shower so they can see it, or maybe it's just something that they review outside of the bathroom before they go into the shower. It depends how much support they need to get through all of these steps. And then the one highlighted in blue on the right is for brushing teeth. And then all of these were just found on a web browser search, and I linked where I got all of these from. So you can just search right in your web browser to find some of these things, but also as a supervisor, I've modified these for each client. So your BCBA can maybe help you create a more personalized schedule or visual that might help your child get through these adaptive skills. Okay. All right, so the next set of skills that we work on for school-aged kids during their ABA sessions might be pre-vocational skills. So this would be for kids that are a little bit older, maybe around 10 to 12 years old might be when you're starting to think of these things, because obviously vocational skills are getting kids ready for jobs, which most of the kids I work with right now aren't of age to be having a job, but they can be learning these skills that might down the road prepare them for a potential job that they might have. So some of these pre-vocational skills are following a schedule or just following multi-step instructions. So the picture that we have is one of our school-aged kids here at the center creating his visual schedule. And you can see in the top left, it says classroom 3, and then it's obviously blurry in the picture, but it lists like the schedule of what the classroom at the Learning Center is doing every 15-minute increment. And then the child is making his own individual schedule to kind of go along with that. So he's learning how to make a schedule, and then he's learning how to follow it too. So checking the time and seeing, okay, it's 3:45. Now it's time to move on to the next thing in the schedule. So that goes with the time management piece. Another pre-vocational skill is teaching kids to ask for help. So if you think about it and you're at a new job, you might not know how to do everything when you first start, right? So you need to know how to ask for help. So that's just something that we kind of build into our sessions, and maybe set things up where we give kids something to do and they might not know how to do it all. So we then provide that opportunity for them to ask for help with getting that task done. The next one is accepting criticism or displaying flexibility. So when you have a job, you're working sometimes in a team with a group of people. And so you have to be flexible and be able to work with those other people. So that's where a lot of the social skills that Chelsea was talking about earlier, and that we'll talk about more, come into play, and being able to be flexible in a group setting. And then also accept criticism. So if you were given a task to do and it's not done correctly, accepting that feedback and then being able to fix the errors that were made. And then some of the older kids or school-aged kids are working on practicing preferred work duties. So we're giving them a choice of maybe what they might want to do. For example, in our South Center, we have a child working on vocational skills, and he is getting office supplies. So seeing, okay, we're out of the sticky notes and blue pens. So then he goes to the cabinet and gets the office supplies that are needed and puts them in the drawer. So those are some simple work duties that worked for him, because he's able to read a list, see what's missing, and that was something that was preferred for him, versus maybe another kid might be better at helping to make copies or go to the printer to get things printed out. So giving the children an option of what type of duties they might want to practice.
Yeah, I've had a couple of young men who are huge sports fans, and it's their dream to support football and baseball teams. And it's really fun to sit down with them and kind of brainstorm, like, okay, you want to work with the San Diego Padres. Like, what do you think they need? What can we do to take care of the locker room? What can we do to make sure that they're successful? And it turns into, well, we got to do laundry. We got to wash the bottles. We have to make sure the equipment is ready. And it's a lot of pre-planning and a lot of chores that kind of get snuck in there, but it's really fun to have those conversations.
Awesome. That sounds fun. That's
yeah, super fun
session. Okay.
Okay, it's my turn. We also cover pre-academic skills in all of the learning environments with MeBe. This kind of depends on your payer as well. I mean, across the board, we don't tutor your children. We're not going to teach them math or reading or anything like that, but we can work a lot on readiness that will create higher levels of success in the school environment. And that includes something like attending to a non-preferred task, actually sitting at the table, looking at a worksheet. Maybe it's tracing, maybe it's a coloring worksheet, but working on it for a certain amount of time without getting up, without putting your head on your desk, without being so disruptive that nobody else around you can focus. That can be a skill that we work on. We can work on a little bit of reading comprehension in that, you listen to a story, and then afterwards we ask you, like, oh, where did the rabbit go? And we just kind of make sure that you can recall events from the story as well. That's something that I've done before. Independently following a schedule. This is something that Andrea already covered, but we do start with a really simple picture schedule oftentimes. I have kiddos that have graduated from a picture schedule with Velcro into a little bit more of like a handwritten on paper schedule, because it's more of a big kid thing to look at it, refer to it. It's just words. It's pretty by the book. It's got numbers on it. Eventually we could even graduate to showing the child a digital clock and saying, hey, it's 3:45. What should we be doing right now? And when you ask that, of course, the child has to think, okay, 3:45. And then they look at the schedule and they scale down and they go, 3:45, I should be having a snack right now. And kind of organizing their day in that way. Completing series of tasks, a lot like Andrea illustrated with doing dishes. When you tell a child to do the dishes or brush his teeth, it's actually like 10 steps. It's a ton of different steps. So really being able to tell a child, hey, go brush your teeth, is a huge undertaking when we're starting from square one. And it's really cool to kind of see it progress into you being able to sit on the couch and say, go brush your teeth. Your child hears it. He goes into the bathroom, gets his toothbrush, gets it wet, puts the toothpaste on, puts it in his mouth, et cetera, et cetera. This is a really, really cool skill that can translate into, coming into the classroom at the beginning of the day and saying, okay, it's time for your morning routine. I need to hang up my backpack. I need to take off my jacket, put it on the hook, go to my desk, pull out my notebook. It's a lot of tasks that have to be done. And a lot of teachers kind of expect kids to do that independently. So we can try to work on that as well. Following group and individual instructions. This can be done in a couple different ways. Group instructions are any instance really where the teacher looks at a group of several kids and says, okay, everybody stand up, everybody line up. And your child is able to kind of process what that means, even without the teacher saying, hey, Chelsea, stand up, go get in line. She can kind of look up, she can watch her friends, and she can process that, oh, everybody's standing up and moving right now. Maybe I should go too. That's how some kiddos think. Other kiddos can just hear the direction and they'll just be the front of the line because that is really important to them. If they're not the front of the line, it's going to be a big deal. But it depends on your child. We also try really hard as BCBAs to collaborate with your teacher. This looks differently depending on your payer. Sometimes it's as little as just attending your IEP meetings, of course, with your own permission, taking notes, making sure that any deficits that the school is finding that we can address in home or in the learning center are being addressed to help them be more successful. We have also gone so far as to provide observation in school and give a little bit more direct feedback. It depends on what your insurance provider, funding source are capable of handling, what the school wants to do, but we're always really, really happy to do that. And it's always a lot of fun to make sure that our clients are having success in all of these environments.
Right. And it's helpful to for the BCBA to collaborate with the teacher, because if the child is maybe having some trouble in the classroom, we like to think, what can we do during our ABA sessions to try to help them learn more skills so that they can, in theory, then generalize those and use those skills in the classroom setting. So moving on. So now we're going to go into what sessions look like in the different settings. So the first setting that we're going to talk about is the Learning Center sessions. And goes across all settings. Your child will have a RBT, a registered behavior technician, that will be working directly with them every day. And then typically you have a BCBA or a clinical supervisor that oversees your programs in your child's sessions as well. And they'll check in about once a week to add new programs and check in with progress and train the RBTs and just kind of make sure that everything's running smoothly. But the main person that will be working directly with your child during each session is the RBT. And so some of the skills that, we obviously work on during Learning Center are these social skills. And we've already touched on this quite a bit, but sharing obviously is a big one that needs to be focused on during Learning Center sessions, because there's lots of toys here at the Learning Center that the kids can play with, and they all usually have the same type of favorite toys. So it's good practice for kids to work on asking for a turn with these Avenger toys, waiting for a response before the other friend answers their question, can I have a turn? And then practicing relinquishing that toy and sharing it for a certain amount of time, and then maybe occupying their time with another preferred toy while the other friend is sharing their favorite toys. And then also just kind of playing together. So not having to totally relinquish the toy to the friend, but how can they play together with their favorite toys? And RBTs help facilitate all those learning opportunities. Chelsea earlier talked about conversation practice. So There's lots of kids here so that each kid can have a conversation partner that they can work on their conversational skills with. We also obviously have group games and group activities for the kids here at the learning centers. And then another thing to motivate the kids is group contingencies. So what that looks like is you have a group of kids and they have rules that they have to follow when they're playing this group game. And if they all follow the rules and wait their turn and sit nicely and keep their hands in themselves and have good sportsmanship, and they all are able to follow that rule, then maybe they get 5 minutes extra recess or something like that. So the kids are learning to kind of work together to have good behavior while they're playing with each other.
Okay, so continuing with sessions that take place in the Learning Center, this is applicable to a lot of different environments, especially this bullet point pertaining to one-on-one time with the RBT. This is any amount of time that is spent away from peers and just kind of working one-on-one to really work on some of those skills that we really need an adult to participate in, sometimes because other kids can be a little unpredictable, and sometimes just because, you know, other kids aren't really equipped to practice the same skills at the same time. So during one-on-one time with the RBT, which will be programmed in at the Learning Center and in home, we practice individual goals like big deal, little deal. I love this goal. I do it all the time. I ask myself this all the time. Oh, I stubbed my toe. Oh, I spilled my water. Okay, is this a big deal or is this a little deal? My sister smashed my magnet tile pyramid. Is this a big deal or a little deal? One thing that I do like to say with some of the older learners is that it's okay to have big feelings about this. It is a little deal. I know you're really upset. Let's call it what it is. Let's use some coping skills. We can talk about those in October, and we can help you process this. Personal space is another really, really common goal that we can work on. We can start with sorting pictures of people that are obviously sitting too close to each other, and people who are positioned appropriately. Sometimes with older learners, once they kind of understand the concept of personal space, but they just truly do not realize that they are invading, I'll do something like set a timer for 30 minutes, warn them ahead of time, hey, we're gonna really work on our personal bubbles for the next half hour. And then if they're successful, they get some sort of a reinforcer, they get an extra couple minutes on their YouTube video, they get to invite somebody to play Jenga, anything like that. That can be really effective when they're really thinking about it and they're really processing it. We have a lot of visuals that are great for personal space and how you can touch different people that you have different relationships with as well. Obviously you can hug your little brother, but you probably shouldn't hug your mailman. So we try to help them kind of discriminate between those things as well. Like I said before, we do work on emotions, interpreting emotions, eventually not just how does Billy feel, but also why does Billy feel that way? One thing that we think about a lot, when I say we work on interpreting emotions, everybody thinks sad and mad, but it's also relevant to wonder why people are happy and make sure that we understand when people are happy with the things that we're doing, happy with the games that we are playing. So we work on all the emotions. Coping skills, these look different for everybody. Some people can just take a deep breath and feel better. I am one of those people, luckily. Some people need to squeeze their fists. Some people need to stomp their feet. So there are a lot of different ways that coping skills can look. We really try to individualize what's actually going to help your child feel a little bit better, and go from there. But coping skills are a huge part of what we work on in all the environments. Public versus private, this is something that a lot of our older learners are ready for. This kind of pertains to, you know, a couple of different programs. So first, we just kind of show them pictures or even just walk around in a setting and say, hey, is this a public space? Meaning a lot of people might be in here and nobody has to knock on the door to come in. Or is this a private space? Is this somewhere where if you close the door, it's guaranteed that you will be alone. So just like determining whether a space is public and private, and then wondering, you know, what can you do in a public versus a private place? Can you pick your nose in the kitchen? Probably not. But if you're having a lot of trouble, you've been blowing a long time, it's not coming out, maybe go in the bathroom, pick your nose, wash your hands. A really mild example of a private behavior in a public setting, but you can see all the applications for that and where we can really take it. That's another one that gets customized a lot, depending on whether or not your child is having trouble with public versus private, and what we should really do with it. Obviously, that's something that we always involve the parents with pretty intensely as well, just in case. Perspective taking, I kind of already went over it. It does go into emotions, but also starting to problem solve with, you know, oh, we popped Billy's balloon and he's super sad. How would you feel? What should we do? I do this in the natural setting. I have used videos. A lot of those little Pixar shorts are perfect for perspective taking. I really like using those, stories, anything like that. But it's a huge world, and it takes a little bit of time. But this is a really cool program that a lot of our older learners are ready for. It's really exciting to dive into.
Awesome, thanks. And so these are just a few examples of some of the skills that your child might work on when they're doing their one-on-one time with RBT. And like Chelsea kind of mentioned a lot, for each skill, everything is individualized. So if there are deficits or things that are coming up that your child needs more practice in, those are things that we want parent feedback too. And, you know, how can we help your child function better in all of the environments? And then, you know, also using the assessments too, and seeing, you know, how can we catch them up to their same aged peers as well. Okay. So this slide is talking about our school-aged kid group meetings, and these are specific to, at least for now, the Learning Center in San Diego is where me and Chelsea are mainly located, in Kearney Mesa. We have these meetings for the kids every afternoon. I think eventually the plan is that maybe more learning centers throughout MeBe will have these types of group meetings for the older kids. But basically what it is it's not really a formal meeting, but they kind of feel special because they'll get up from their classroom and they all walk in a line together, which is good practice too, and waiting for each other as they walk through the center. And then they go into actually the room that I'm sitting in right now, and they have this meeting, and one of the lead RBTs leads a group activity every day just to teach different skills in a group setting for the kids. So one of the skills that they work on is learning about flexibility. So an example that we did was we gave them a piece of spaghetti and a rubber band. Obviously, if you try to bend the spaghetti, it breaks. If you try to bend move the rubber band, it's more flexible. And that opened up the conversation for teaching the kids about how to be flexible. And we had different activities that went along with how they can be flexible. And then something came up and another kid came in that normally doesn't come in, and we had to be flexible by getting that kid a new chair and opening up our circle. And so these natural opportunities kind of come up where we're able to teach what we're learning just because of the setting that we're in. Another activity that we do here in our little group meetings is the color circle game. And this is to teach the kids to be active listeners. So what they're doing in that activity is each kid will think of a color, and then they say 5 things that are that color. And they don't have to be things that are in this room. They can be anything that they can think of. So the color is red, fire truck, apple, and I don't know, the chairs in this room are red. And then once they say all the things, then all the kids go around and say one thing that the child said. And that is to teach that active listening. So were the kids actually listening to what the child said, or are they only labeling something that they can think of that's red? Another game that they'll play is telephone, which is another active listener or learning, you know, words kind of get changed, and that just turns into more of a fun game. And sometimes they make it fun and they try to change the words, but that's okay. They're having fun and they're playing a game and they're taking turns and they're being quiet while the other people are whispering to each other. And it teaches a lot of different skills just within that simple little game. They've also played charades, or outside of this room, we have a big gym in this specific learning center where they will put together an obstacle course and, you know, try to get from one side of the gym to the other within that obstacle course. And then of course, within all of this, they are learning so many skills: sitting in a group, raising their hand, being called on before they say what they want to say, which is a big one that they all need continued help with because they all have something to say always. So there's just a lot of skills that are learned, and these activities are 15 to 20, maybe 30 minutes a day, but it's something that they're all doing together every day to work towards these goals.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, Hangouts. So this is a new, lengthier social group that I have helped to implement exclusively right now in the Kearney Mesa, San Diego Learning Center, but we are creating a paper trail. We're gathering interest. We're hoping to spread it to other locations sometime soon, assuming that interest continues to build. This is similar to the older learner group, except it's only once a week, but it's for 2 hours. So actually cumulatively a similar amount of time, but a little bit more concentrated. We also invite clients both from in-home locations and within the learning center. So we do have a good mix of kids that come in. The average age range right now is 8 to 12 years old. We do have some younger kiddos that are ready to join us. I don't believe we have anybody older than that, but obviously everybody's welcome. Inside of Hangouts, which is kind of still developing because we're meeting our kids and we're adjusting it based on what they're into, what they're actually responding to. But we put a pretty heavy emphasis into group activities, listening to group directions, like I said before. Okay, everybody folds your paper, hot dog style. So we're not saying like, oh, Andrea, fold your paper like this. We are sort of taking away some of those individual prompts and sort of relying on the child themselves to kind of look around, figure out what hot dog style means, keep up with the group, follow a bunch of directions in a row to make an origami frog or something like that. We actually don't do origami anymore because it turns out nobody likes it. So that's an example of a change that we have already made to kind of customize it to the individual children that are participating right now. Science projects, we've made slime. We have done some physics projects with balloons. Problem solving kind of goes into one of the balloon games. We did a balloon race where we tied a filled up balloon, not tied off, to a straw, and then we threaded a string through the straw, taped the string to do 2 different chairs, and then everybody said 3, 2, 1, go, let go of your balloon. It follows the string all the way to the other chair, and we raced the balloons against each other. One child cut his string without measuring it. It turned out to be too short, and instead of sort of giving him the answer or making adjustments for him, I kind of interrupted and I said, what can you do to make your string longer? What can you do to make sure that your string reaches from this chair to that chair so that your track is the same length? And we came up with several options of what he could do. He could cut a whole new string. I didn't really want him to. He can tie 2 strings together. Oh, they're different colors. Is that a big deal or is that a little deal? Flexibility in play to try to make things work. One child also allowed for too much slack on his string. So as the balloon went, it kind of spiraled and it ended up kind of hijacking another balloon, and it was a huge mess. So what should we do differently next time? So it's a lot of opportunities to kind of work together, to use coping skills when you built your track perfectly fine, but somebody else put too much slack in their line and they interrupted your balloon. Flexibility in play. What should we change? If we do it exactly the same way next time, it's probably going to happen again. So maybe we should make adjustments and be flexible like a rubber band and not like a dry spaghetti noodle. Group games, we've been experimenting with a lot of different board games. We're really interested in Pictionary, and our awesome group leader also created a Mission Impossible obstacle course with red yarn. She just taped a bunch of yarn to the walls and had the kids practice kind of maneuvering over and under it. We actually did play the theme song, practicing good sportsmanship. When somebody got through really quickly, somebody took their time, somebody got, like, they knocked some yarn down, and kind of coping with that. That was a big hit. I'd love to see a huge Mission Impossible room if that's something that I can get enough yarn for. But that's what we've been doing at Hangouts, practicing a lot of those social emotional skills, problem solving, group activities. It's a really great way to change up the week and kind of end things on a really interesting note up in Kearney Mesa anyway.
Yeah, I like Hangouts too, because it's like you said, it's a good opportunity for the kids that normally are having their ABA sessions at home. They come here on Fridays. And so the kids look forward to it and they get to see their friends that they only see once a week. And it makes it special. And I'm excited to see it continue to grow here and hopefully at other locations too.
Yeah. Home sessions. Okay, this one's also me. I have a lot of home sessions still. So we do practice some adaptive skills. Like Andrea said, it does depend on your insurance provider. Sometimes we can work directly with your child on adaptive skills, meaning anything that's sort of like a daily life. How do you make a sandwich? How do you brush your teeth? Daily life skill, basically. Those are really, really great to target in the home. Sibling play is another great thing to target in home. I actually have one kiddo that predominantly comes to the Learning Center, but he plays awesome with his peers there. So I'll talk to his parents during parent training and they'll say, well, he still doesn't treat his brother very well. So occasionally we go home and we work with siblings. Sometimes those relationships can really start to branch out and we need to kind of dial it back and make sure that those skills are getting applied everywhere and that any adjustments that we need to make are being made. Obviously our relationships with family are very different from relationships with peers. So home sessions can be really valuable that way. We do spend one-on-one time with the RBT, just like I described from the Learning Center slide. You get a lot of one-on-one time with your RBT when you're in home. And it's a great opportunity for kids that really, really need to spend a lot of time working on communication. With some of my older learners, some children will speak really quickly, or they'll say something strangely, or they'll say something in a way that you didn't understand. And RBT is great for being able to just slow it down and say, you know what, I don't know what you mean. Can you say that differently? And they can take the time and they can really figure out how to help your child communicate effectively. Whereas maybe a peer in a social skills group is not going to have that kind of patience. They're just going to say, I don't know what Jeremy's talking about. I'm just going to move on. Social skills can absolutely still be targeted within the home. If you have community access in your report and your insurance is okay with it, we can go for a walk and find kids to play basketball with on the driveway. We are always happy to facilitate play dates, assuming that the parent is still present. Somebody over 18 years old is still present in the home. We're happy to host a little play date, play Monopoly for 2 hours and work on all of these social skills that we've been discussing at length before, just to have all of those social opportunities to capture those opportunities. Or sometimes we have to work with you to really nail down, like, hey, who's he hanging out with at school? Can you ask his mom if he can come over? And really try to make sure that we still get those social skills in, even if we're having sessions exclusively within your home. But yeah, we can definitely still work on turn-taking games, sharing, sitting at a snack together, sitting at the table, finishing a meal, all of those skills, cleaning up toys together. I do have one kiddo that says, I'm not going to clean that up. That's not my mess. So kind of, you know, that's a social skill and an adaptive skill at the same time. I know that technically your brother used it last, but these magnet tiles are really in the way. They're going to hurt somebody. I really need your help to clean them up. And that's obviously a very effective skill to master within the home setting, and something that we really like to drive home.
Awesome. And then the last setting we have this evening is community outing sessions. So Chelsea already touched on it a little bit. So we can go to the park. We can go to the park to meet specific kids and have a play date, or maybe there's novel new kids at the park and that gives your child the opportunity to introduce themselves and maybe make a new friend. Sometimes and again, I know we keep saying this over and over again, but it is the truth, depending on the payer, depends on whether we can go on these outings or not. So sometimes we'll go to like an after school program with your kid and help them with social interactions in that setting. Maybe we'll go to the grocery store and your child will follow a grocery list and go and find the different items that they're looking for on their grocery store list, work on checking out, paying, greeting the cashier, all of that, bagging the grocery items at the end, walking safely back to the car. So like community safety type skills. Maybe if they're still holding hands, working on holding hands, or if they're too old to be holding hands, working on walking next to you instead of walking too far away, or pushing the cart as a replacement. So that gives them something to do if they need something to do with their hands while they're in the store, or just kind of like Chelsea mentioned too, just going on neighborhood walks and again, working on those community safety skills. So stopping and waiting for the light to turn green or for the walk sign to go on and waiting while it says do not walk, etc. And here's just a visual again that I got from an online search, and this would be an example of a grocery store outing. The child needs to find some fruit, some veggies, bread, etc., put it in the bag, pay for it, say thank you to the cashier and all that. And then just to wrap it up, if your insurance provider doesn't allow these community outings, that's okay. Because again, like I mentioned earlier, it can be something that can be discussed during parent training meetings, and BCBA can help you kind of create a plan so that you're able to successfully go out into the community with them. And any concerns that you have while you're out there, those can be parent training goals, and the BCBA can help you overcome any obstacles that might be happening in the community, even if we're not able to go in the community during ABA sessions with you. And that's about it. Do you have anything left to add before we go to the last questions page?
I think you covered it pretty well. Definitely what I use community outing sessions for the most, besides social skills, are those safety skills, remembering, you know, I write out a lot of neighborhood rules, like, oh, what are the 3 rules for crossing the street? We look both ways. We hold hands if it's appropriate for you to hold hands. We wait for the stop sign. We look for cars, et cetera, et cetera. But community outing sessions are great for safety skills.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Does anyone have any questions for us?
And just as a reminder, everybody's muted. So if you do have questions, you can write them into the chat box or the Q&A box down the bottom of the screen. We haven't gotten any questions yet, but we can wait a minute and see if anybody has any. We can ask them now. All right, well, we'll give it a second. And while we're waiting,
I do like the.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I do like that cookies were on that grocery list. That made me giggle a little bit.
I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, cookies, of course.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, that sounds good. So while we just wait a second here, I will remind everybody that I will send a follow-up email that has a link to the recording. And if you have any questions after the webinar, you're welcome to respond to that email, and we can put you in touch with Andrea or Chelsea to answer any additional questions as well. And yeah, follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay in touch with us and see our upcoming events and webinars. And let's see, I do see one question. One question, Chelsea, I see you're typing in there too. How often do you have the meetings?
Oh yeah. Didn't want to interrupt.
Oh no, that's okay.
But I might be the least qualified to answer this, but I think we have a parent webinar about once a month. For current clients, I think that we are offering some group parent training. If you're interested in that, you can definitely ask your BCBA about it.
And if they're asking about the Hangouts, that was Fridays for current
Those are
clients in Central San Diego, right?
Yep. And then the school age children meeting that I was talking about, they're doing that every day here at the Central San Diego Learning Center for those meetings. What disability does community health care cover? Typically, we're working with kids with autism. Sometimes they have other diagnoses as well, but usually ABA is provided with that when it coincides with a child that has an autism diagnosis. There are exceptions though, and so you can check with your primary care physician maybe to see if they can place a referral for ABA services. And then from there, you can connect to us here at MeBe to see if we are able to provide services. I'm not sure if that fully answered that question, but please let me know if you have a follow-up with that. Are there volunteer opportunities? For what, I guess, would be my follow-up question. Right now, we don't really have anyone volunteering. Perhaps, yeah. Would it be to volunteer to work with the kids, or what are you interested in? What volunteer opportunities are you interested in? Or is it for the kids to have volunteer experience? I'm not sure.
I do know sometimes we get students who are currently in like an occupational therapy program or a speech language pathology program, and they may do, sometimes it's considered volunteering or like a fellowship or internship. And we can sometimes offer those kinds of opportunities with supervision under the director.
Yes. Do you provide nutrition classes for kids who overeat or have autism? So that would be, usually that's something that occupational therapy may help with. If it's something that you're interested in getting help on, I would talk first to your primary care doctor to see if there's a referral for either of those, for that service, occupational therapy. And then for kids that do get feeding therapy through occupational therapy at MeBe, that's when the collaboration comes in, and the BCBA might work with the OTs to make sure that we're kind of all on the same page about how to help children who are having overeating issues or any problems with eating.
And I will add as an additional resource that we have done a webinar on feeding therapy. It's I know that's a popular topic and we tend to get a lot of questions on that. So if that would be a resource for you, that will be available on the MeBe Family YouTube channel under the recorded webinars. Okay, I think we've answered all of the questions that came in, and we're at exactly an hour. So we can sign off. like I said, if you do have more questions, feel free to reply to that follow-up email. I'll send that out tomorrow. And thank you again for joining us this evening. And we hope this was helpful, and maybe we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good evening.